Hi everyone, this is Anto Chávez with Be Latina News. Today we're talking to Juliana Macedo de Nascimento, who's the State and Local Policy Manager at United We Dream. And United We Dream is the largest youth-led immigrant organization in this country. So she's going to be talking about what is going on with the election results, what do we know so far, and what does that mean for marginalized communities, specifically undocumented and documented people. So let's get started. Hi, Juliana. How are you?
I'm well, all things considered, I am doing okay. How are you?
That's good. I'm doing well, just anxious about what's going to happen, but it is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, we're all just waiting.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. What is United We Dream and what's your role within the organization? Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so United We Dream is, the largest immigrant youth-led grassroots organization in the country. We do a lot of organizing with high school and college-aged folks, immigrants, first and second generation, right? And we are very intersectional in our work, and we fight for the rights and dignities of all people all over the country. And we also have a sister organization called United We Dream Action, which is then where we do a lot of organizing around elections, right? And I'm a member with them, and that's who I'm representing here. But for United We Dream, I am their state and local policy manager.
Okay, awesome. So about the elections, what do we know so far?
All right, so right now we know that immigrant youth did what we set out to do, right? We called and we knocked doors and we texted and we reached out to folks, and it worked. Youth of color and Latinx voters showed up for the candidates that we can work with and push to do the right things by us and our communities, right? We also know that every vote counts. So we are patiently waiting for the results for the presidential election. We're not rushing anybody, Nevada out there. But we also know it's looking good for Democrats and Joe Biden, right? So we are being patient. We also know that we helped elect true progressives to the House who will be our champions and help us pass policy that helps people without hurting people. And we know that we helped take a couple of Senate seats, especially in Arizona, right? We will be reminding Mark Kelly, who got him there, and Hickenlooper in Colorado as well. And we know that we won local seats for our people. We, at United We Dream Action, we really endorsed and fought for seats in the DC City Council. On Ward 4, we won. And then a few in Florida, including the newly elected Miami-Dade Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. So we're really happy with the results. We had endorsed close to a third, to 30. We were watching 36 races, not all of them endorsed, but mostly endorsed. And we've won 23 of them so far. So that's a really good result for all of the work that we've put in. And we know that even though, the Congress, the Democrats might be losing a few seats in total, but we know that now we have even more progressives in those seats, right? So the squad is growing, and that can only mean good things to us as well. So we are really positive and really hopeful for what can happen next year.
Yeah, that all sounds great. And so the work continues, right? This happened because of youth of color, like you said, and immigrant youth. And so right now, how does that work look like? How do we protect the electoral process and make sure that every single vote is counted?
Right. So right now, the main thing, like I've mentioned before, is to be patient. We know that it's frustrating and nerve-wracking, but these votes will be counted. People are, no matter, what's happening outside these buildings, people inside are working really hard, and we have to let them do their jobs. And it'll come. The more votes that are counted, the better for us anyway. So it's better that we wait. The second we can do is try and battle disinformation and misinformation out there, right? We know that we have a lot of these forces trying to trick our communities into believing certain things, and that happened throughout the election, and it's still going on. People saying that, Pennsylvania is called for the president, or like he goes on Twitter and says that he claims certain states. That's not how an election works, right? So we need to be sure to let our communities know that that's not how that works. That we get our information from good sources, right? Reputable, legitimate sources like Be Latina News, and that we, we spread the good, right information. I think those are the main two things that we can do: be patient and fight disinformation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that has been a battle since this president got elected, and even before, just fighting disinformation. I think that's a really important point. And so, like you said, a lot of seats were flipped, and Arizona, it looks like it's flipped. So I would love to know, how did Arizona become a battleground state?
Right, with a lot of work, right? We know that our folks, United We Dream also is part of one of our bodies, decision makers, is our National Leadership Committee, and we have a lot of organizations that are part of it from Arizona, like Lucha, right, who have been working on the ground for over a decade now, right? And they got Joe Arpaio out of Maricopa County, and they've been doing the work this entire time, right? This is not just because, Joe Biden became the Democratic, won the primary, and all of a sudden everybody just turned. That's not how this worked. So we know that our folks have been on the ground and organizing and talking to las señoras and talking to people one-on-one for a really long time. And that's how these things get done. And that's the only way to make lasting change as well, right? Because we can do, the lazy thing and just go in just for the elections and organize just during the election years. But those gains can be quickly reversed by the other party. But if you're there every day, day in, day out, year in, year out, even when there isn't an election and you're organizing folks, that's how you really turn things around. So that's how we won Arizona.
Yeah. And you mentioned it's looking good for Democrats. So in the case that Biden does win, what does that mean for documented and undocumented folks?
Right. Well, first of all, hopefully it means that he follows through, and we're going to make him follow through, right? Like, first, I have to say that before even the idea that he follows through, the first step is that we're going to make him follow through on it, right? Like, the work is not done when he's elected, or, on January 23rd when he gets in. That's not when the work is done. The work is just beginning, right? We are finally going to stop playing defense, and we're going to play some offense here, and we're going to be really pushing to gain some ground instead of just defending what little we have. So what it means for documented folks like myself, I'm a DACA recipient, is that we are going to push him to follow through on his promise to reinstate DACA in its full form, right, and expand it. He has promised to expand it through TPS, through DED, and expand it to our families as well. You all remember that DAPA was also a thing back in the Obama administration, where they tried to protect the undocumented parents of American citizens. And so we're going to be pushing for those kinds of executive actions. Meanwhile, at the same time, getting some legislation passed to really pass permanent protections for all of our folks. Because it's not going to stop with immigrant youth, right? Immigrants are of all ages, and we need to protect our entire community, not just ourselves. We're not going to do any more compromises on enforcement either. We've been doing that. It hasn't worked. Now we fight for our folks.
Yeah, and I'm optimistic to see what that is gonna look like with folks, like you said, on the ground, fighting for these things. So the work continues no matter what happens with the election results. And now that we're talking about election results, Trump is claiming fraud, right? And vowing to take a case to the Supreme Court. If Biden in fact wins, what could that process look like?
Well, first of all, Trump has already filed a couple lawsuits. A few of them have already been rejected by the courts because he has no standing on this, right? So he can appeal these all the way to the Supreme Court, and we know that he packed that court with conservatives talking about this day, right? He hasn't been shy about saying, no, we have to have a 9-people Supreme Court because I need the justices on my side. But here's the thing, he doesn't control them, right? And we've seen that the Supreme Court, even though it is conservative, and yes, it does give out some decisions that we don't agree with, they also have sided with us, like with the DACA case, right? So we know that they're not completely beholden to him. And so he can say whatever he wants, but he has no standing. If every vote is counted, if we are patient and we don't rush the process and everything is certified, then he has no standing. So we just have to be patient and let this process play out. We know that there has been chatter, of the other side showing up to polling places, counting the votes, asking for either votes to be to stop counting the vote or to continue to count the vote where they've already stopped. And those people also have no standing on this, right? The votes are going to be what they are, and that's what's going to determine who's going to be the next president.
Correct. And okay, so regardless of the winner of this election, what does it mean for Trump to have gotten this kind of overwhelming support that we've seen in many other states?
Oh my gosh, you're telling me.
That's a huge question.
It's really depressing to think that this many people still agree with this man after 4 years, after his literally killing them, right? Through his rallies, through COVID-19, through leaving people behind in the cold by not busing them back to their cars. And somehow he doesn't lose their support. And we have to call it what it is, because it's not economic insecurity, right? It's racism. It is the original sin of this country that still permeates throughout our culture. It's people who can't take that minorities are, growing in numbers. We will overtake the white vote at some point, right? By 2040. And now they're just trying to hold on to power through and set up the system in a way that will allow them to still have that power when they're a minority like us, because probably they're afraid that we're going to treat them the way that they treated us, which is not true. We all know that. But that's really what that means for him to get this much support, right? We have to be real and be able to say it so that we can deal with it. You can't fix a problem if you don't recognize it, right? Yeah. So we have to be able to talk about it. And that's how we do it, by naming it first. And it is racism.
Yeah. So that's just so much. I mean, after 4 years, it's just, even at 2016, a lot of people were surprised. And for 4 years, they weren't able to, like you said, name it. what it is, and this is what happens when you don't recognize the problem and deal with it. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. It's
so
an unfortunate truth, but it is what it is. Sorry, I was just saying it's an unfortunate.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So I think my last question for you, Juliana, and especially because you are part of an organization that's on the ground and that's grassroots, and who knows and listens to the community every day. What do you think comes next for immigrant, LGBTQ, Black and Brown communities?
Well, like I said before, this is just the beginning, right? Once this election is called, the work begins again. We know that even though we have worked hard to elect people who are going to be on our side, we also know that those people have a lot of pressures coming from every angle at them. And that sometimes they don't agree with us on everything, right? We know that Biden is a moderate. He's not going to be our savior. But he's just the person that's going to be easier to push on the issues that really matter to us. So what's next is more of the same. Unfortunately, we have to keep pushing and we have to keep fighting, right? Hopefully, like I've mentioned before as well, like we can stop playing defense and trying to defend and stand our ground and just keep what little we have, and we can make some gains, right? We can make some gains on DACA. We can make some gains on path to citizenship for all undocumented people. We can make some gains on actual LGBTQ plus rights, not to depend on the Supreme Court so much, right? We can make some headway on gender equality through Congress. Again, not depend on reproductive rights for the Supreme Court, right? So unfortunately, we have to keep fighting. That's just the way this works. We don't get to just stop. We get to breathe a little easier, and we get to enjoy the work a little more, but we don't get to stop.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. And I think, everybody is the same right now, a little bit anxious, but we just have to wait. And we just have to wait to see what happens, not only with the results, but with the next 4 years, regardless of the winner. Exactly. So, and like you said, we can't just wait and see. We also have to do the work. So thank you so much for coming here and talking a little bit of that work that's been done for so many people and immigrant youth in this country. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And this was a pleasure. And hi to everyone who took the time to come in and listen to me rant about this.
Yeah,
thank you all.
And this live will live in our page. So please send it to friends and family if they're a little uncertain about the future. They can get some answers here. So send it to everyone you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Juliana.
Bye.